Welcome to DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at tonight's 9-game slate where you have pretty strong pitching options as far as Madison Bumgarner, Jacob deGrom, Jose Fernandez. I mean, all kind of your top plays there. So it does kind of leave you kind of straggling for some value here as far as bats go.
No question. And I'd say this is a night where it's like Popeye, ate his spinach versus not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like we're dealing with, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a really bad pitcher.
I feel like Kevin Gossman's on every bad pitching slate, and I have to decide if I want to just throw myself into a woodshed with him.
I think that is true. I do feel like he's always sitting in that mid-range.
Always, dude. Always. And you have to be like, well, he could be all right tonight, or he could just give up 6 runs in the first 3 innings.
That's true. Very true.
And, hey, if you're Carlos Carrasco, you can give up 4 and still get 11 strikeouts somehow, and they just keep rolling you out there till the 8th inning. I mean, that's fine.
And then they take you out, and then they blow your win.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm happy they did that. Yeah.
First game here, Dodgers and Phillies. Gerard Eichhoff versus Ross Stripling. Given Eichhoff struggles against lefties this year, 345 WOBA, 1.43 home runs per 9. A lot of these lefties are certainly in play.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Utley and Reddick as the sort of value-ish guys in this range. But, again, it's going to be tough to pay up for Seager, Turner, and Gonzalez at those prices. It just depends on what you're doing at pitching, because if you do pay up for a Fernandez and even, I don't know, a mid-range option, you're still not going to be able to break the bank for all 3 of those top-end guys.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, they are expensive, as you mentioned, the Seager, Turner, Gonzalez grouping, even a Yasmani Grandal, who you want to give a look at, but it also at that price, it is tough. Even a Jock Pederson at 4,800, it's just there's no leeway here with this pricing. Obviously, Utley and Reddick are the most economical picks, and they're still getting exposure from the left side. And even though Reddick has struggled this year, or has struggled with the Dodgers, he's still a guy I'm going to look at in a good matchup.
Yeah, I like this. I like tonight for him. This seems like the guy you can get the exposure to from this lineup. Obviously, yesterday didn't go as planned, but I think considering Eichhoff's WOBA and HR per 9, Reddick's got a pretty decent shot at some production here.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as the Phillies go, I mean, I was hoping the Phillies would kind of give us some value here, but they don't really. I mean, everyone's pretty much priced up. I mean, Maikel Franco is probably the only reasonable option here given this price tag.
Gross. That's all I'm saying on that lineup. That's just gross.
I would have loved to see Hernandez or Herrera in a much more reasonable spot because I do like them, but I can't justify the price tags when they're right around other guys.
That's a lineup where I'm looking at them if they're in the mid-3s, and I'm really excited about putting them in. But this is just a travesty.
No, I think Franco's the only one you can reasonably use here at the price tag.
Yeah, I think so too. And, I mean, Franco's solid at that price. But overall, yeah, I just don't think you're touching those top 2 and really the top 3.
I don't think so either. Astros and Orioles next year, Kevin Gossman versus Joe Musgrove. And obviously these 2 pitchers do have a lot of upside, do have a lot of ability. I actually think I'm probably more inclined to actually pick on Gossman here a little bit, just with some of those right-handed bats for Houston. But obviously they are expensive. But George Springer's price, I mean, usually we like him more against lefties, but at that price tag, I'm certainly okay with this, given the fact that Gossman still is struggling with right-handed bats.
Yeah, I'm probably going with Springer and Gaddis from this group and probably fading the rest. I don't want to pay 56 for Altuve or 54 for Correa. It is a good matchup, but again, I'm going to be paying up for pitching for the most part, especially in cash. So I feel like Springer's going to be the bargain basement shopping I'm going to be able to afford.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, he's the guy who you are looking to plug in out of this group for value. And as you mentioned, the punt Gaddis, fine there. If I am doing something wacky with pitching, obviously Correa and Altuve would come into play, giving Gossman 366 WOBA to righties this year, 2.17 home runs per 9, friendly ballpark. But outside of that, there's no one really to dive down to.
That's some scrumptious numbers you just threw out at us for right-handed hits.
Oh, it is. It's scrumptious, all right. As far as the Orioles go, I mean, I like Joe Musgrove as a GPP option tonight. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
me
shown
too.
incredible upside. And this Orioles offense, I mean, in the second half, is bottom five in WOBA, so they really haven't been turning it on. And they're at prices where I don't really feel comfortable using him. But obviously, they are still in GPP potential just because of their upside. But I'm really not enjoying the prices. I think that's overall what I take from this lineup.
Yeah, not enjoying those prices. Musgroves are obviously pitched really well. I think this is a fun 7K. Like I like this price. Yeah, if he was 85, I probably wouldn't be in, but seven's just like, okay, I can pay it for Jose Fernandez. I can take a gamble here in a tournament. Done. I feel like this is just a really solid gamble against this. There is power. You always worry about Trumbo, Davis, Machado. Like that grouping could beat up any starting pitcher. But overall, like you mentioned, since the All-Star break, they haven't been their normal selves. So I like Musgrove quite a bit at 7K tonight.
Yeah, and I think really if I'm looking to take a chance, it might be with the Trumbo, with the Machado. But outside of that, I mean, I don't see myself really diving into any of the other pieces, even of value there. I mean, I don't like Weeders or Scope at the back end.
No, no, I don't either.
Indians and White Sox here next. You got Carlos Rodon and Danny Salazar. Much more inclined to pick on Rodon here, given the fact that he's been very up and down against right-handed bats. 365 WOBA to righties, 1.68 home runs per nine. My favorite guy from this group is Brandon Guyer at 4,300. Much more reasonable price than a guy like Rajai Davis. Obviously, the lineup spot is a little bit of a difference, but I think it's worth that $1,000 drop down.
Yeah, I do like Carlos Santana quite a bit. I think he's worth his price, even though the splits aren't great against lefties. I think you're just kind of looking at the righties here in this lineup tonight, though. At least where value falls and how you want to pay up for pitching, it's going to be tough to manage.
Yeah, it definitely is. And if you do have some extra salary, I mean, obviously Rajai Davis and Mike Napoli are kind of the two that you would want to go with in the top of the lineup. But outside of that, you are dropping down.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the White Sox bats go, I mean, I'm not really looking to use any here against Salazar. Salazar's been a guy who's been pretty good against lefties. Righties, he's obviously a little bit worse off, but still no real success there from right-handed bats. I'm just kind of staying away from this White Sox offense.
Yeah, I think that's the move. Pretty easy to stay away from them.
Marlins and Reds next year, Dan Straley versus Jose Fernandez. Reds offense, I mean, pretty much taken out of play for me tonight. I like Fernandez quite a bit. Big favorite there, even in a friendly ballpark for hitters. It's just kind of one where I'm not looking to use Reds at all.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go into any Reds tonight. I think that's a pretty easy fade. Joey Votto being at 48 still is really a questionable price against this matchup.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, I mean, there are some bats here on this Marlins side that I don't mind for value. I don't mind a Martin Prado at 4,300 or Ozuna at 38. Derek Dietrich as well at 3,500. I think those guys, just given the fact that we do need some value on this slate, they do open things up. And obviously Straley's not the most perfect target for them, but obviously he's still kind of an average right-hander in a friendly ballpark. I'm definitely okay with using those guys there.
Yeah, at the very least, the Yelich Gordon grouping I'm okay with. But I mean that's expensive, and you're paying up again, so it's kind of tough to manage with how the pitching shakes out. But yeah, I mean if you want to go that way, I'm totally fine with the Marlins.
Nationals and Braves next year, Rob Whalen versus Reynaldo Lopez. Some of these Nationals bats, I mean, well, most of them are pretty expensive. For me, I mean, I'm okay with obviously using the main guys there, like a Trey Turner or Murphy or Harper, if you're looking to go that way and pay up. But I actually kind of find myself diving down into like an Anthony Rendon. Even though Danny Espinosa has been really bad in the second half, I might punch shortstop with him just because pitching on the slate we might have to.
Yeah, I think this is where you kind of look for some value. Maybe even a Ben Revere hitting really late in the order. But it's kind of going to be a tough combination. Obviously, you like Daniel Murphy as a cash game option if things work out for you and you can fit him in. But overall, yeah, going to be tough to fit these guys in.
Yeah, it definitely is. And you look at Whalen, I mean, a couple starts under his belt, but hasn't done well. A lot of hard ball potential for some of these guys, a lot of home runs. I mean, Whalen's given up a home run in each of his first three starts. So I do understand why Nationals are over 4.5 run total. If you can fit them in those high price guys, good for you. But don't be afraid to kind of dive into the back of that lineup either.
Right, for sure.
As far as the Braves go, I mean, there are some value bets there, like in Adonis Garcia or in Kayarte. I don't mind. Even in Markakis and Kemp. I mean, I think just because we're kind of forced to look at value, it puts the Braves a little bit in play. And it's not like Lopez, I mean, is a guy who's been bad against lefties so far, but there certainly is some potential there against an inexperienced right-hander.
Yeah, I think Kemp's okay at 38. Obviously, his splits are very different against right-handed pitching instead of left, but at 38, I think that's pretty reasonable. And in Kayarte at 42 is okay. Again, it's the Braves, so I think we can reasonably understand the upside isn't too great here, but overall, whatever.
Yeah, it's more just a value sense than anything.
Right.
Twins and Royals next year. Tyler Duffy versus Dylan G. I like some of these Twins bats. I mean, I like Jorge Polanco as a value guy, third base or shortstop, wherever you want to use them. Just 3,400, hitting in the top of the order there against G, who's been bad against lefties, 376 WOBA, 1.71 home runs per nine. And then you kind of got to pay up for a little belts. But I'm okay with Max Kepler and GPPs. I'm certainly on board with the potential he has there.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on what this lineup looks like, we still have questionable status on Mauer and Sano. But if Kepler is batting third tonight, I mean, that's a really strong option against G, obviously. And even, I mean, if Eddie Rosario moves up in the order, I like this Twins lineup as of late. So I'm willing to take a little more gamble on them than normal.
Yeah, I am too, and certainly give the fact that they might have some value bats sneak up into the 3, 4, 5 spot. I mean, obviously Trevor Plouffe would be a nice add there. And you look at G. I mean, G's bad against both sides of the plate, so I'm more than comfortable putting in some of these Twins guys here. As far as the Royals go, I mean, Tyler Duffy, reverse splits guy. Obviously, you have Paulo Orlando, Lorenzo Cain, Eric Hosmer is kind of the top guys in the front half of the lineup. I don't mind them tonight. Over 4.5 run total. Royals are always kind of there for the value. I know Duffy's pitched a little bit better of late, but his overall numbers still indicate that he really isn't that great of a right-hander at this point.
Well, like you mentioned, when you're looking for value on a night like this, I think the Royals are an interesting option, especially even the Kendrys Morales of the world and then the Salvador Perez. I mean, Kane, Hosmer, both 3,600. I think those are the guys you're kind of looking at if you do pay up at pitching.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's just something that you have to kind of dive into, and the Royals kind of fit the bill for value. And obviously Duffy, I mean, isn't bad against lefties, but as he is against righties, but still a 315 WOBA, so pretty pedestrian.
Mm-hmm.
Mariners and Angels next year. Yeah, Hisashi Iwakuma, Matt Schumacher. As far as using any Royal or any Mariners bats, I'm not quite sure if I am paying up that they're going to be the ones I pay up for. I think I'm just really looking to fade. One guy I will toss out is a Mike Zunino. Is kind of a GPP catcher option, but for me, I mean, this game is pretty lackluster, especially on the Mariners side.
Yeah, Schumacher's pitched a lot better at home this year. You kind of worry about what the upside of this Mariners team is. I mean, I'd still go one off with Cano or something like that. But again, for cash games, you're not really looking at that lineup. In terms of Iwakuma, I'm not really targeting him either. Obviously pitched well of late. So I think he's earned our respect in terms of targeting him.
Yeah, he definitely has pitched well of late. I mean, obviously his last start against Oakland was a little bit suspect. I actually don't mind some of these Angels bats because of their pricing. I mean, Escobar 2,400, Colt Calhoun 3,200, Pujols 2,900. I think due to the slate and due to the fact that we are paying up for a Bumgarner or Fernandez in most aspects tonight, it makes you look a little bit there.
The Pujols at 29 is a little surprising. I will say that, but overall, I don't see a ton of upside with this offense.
Diamondbacks and Padres next year, Archie Bradley versus Paul Clemens. There are definitely some viable options here. Obviously, the Diamondbacks bats are priced up quite a bit. Paul Clemens is a guy who, both sides of the plate you can really target against. Yasmani Tomas coming off a monster game at 4,300. He's certainly a guy I'll look at. Outside of that, I'm not quite sure I'm going to be able to get the Diamondback exposure here just because of their pricing.
It's going to be expensive, so that's kind of tough to pay up for. I'm okay with this matchup overall. I mean, I think you look at Jake Lamb at 5 as a potential cash option. But overall, yeah, like you mentioned, it's going to be expensive to pay up for there. Although a Wellington Castillo isn't someone I'm afraid to roster.
No, I'm not either, and I mean, I do like the matchup quite a bit. I mean, if you do have the extra salary, you're going a different way in GPPs. Certainly, Segura, Goldschmidt, Lamb, Tomas, Castillo, they're all in great spots there.
Uh-huh.
So, as far as the Padres go, I mean, you look at Bradley, his big weakness is left-handers, 415 WOBA, 2.06 home runs per 9 this season. Obviously, you have a Jankowski, a Solarte, a Dickerson, a Schimpf, all kind of cheap lefties that you can deploy. They're all GPP options. I don't trust them in cash games, but as far as GPP value goes and potential upside, I'm definitely not afraid of that group.
Yeah, I think you definitely like that Alex Dickerson price at 34. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for home run upside, it's Schimpf and Jankowski. So I'm okay with that grouping. I think that's an interesting contrarian way to go in a tournament for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. Mets and Giants, and this one's a battle of two stud pitchers. I mean, Madison Bumgarner versus Jacob deGrom. For me, I mean, obviously it's pretty limited as far as offense goes here. You're not really expecting a ton of runs. I'll toss out like a couple of guys, I mean, that you can look at in GPPs. Obviously, a Wilmer Flores at 3,100, given his success against lefties. Outside of that, though, there's no one on the Mets I really want to use.
No, definitely not on the Mets. It's just a tough matchup for them. This is like Bumgarner is your cash option, I think, even at that extended price. So that's going to be really, really rough. I don't see how they break through.
I don't either. And even the Giants, I mean, you look at DeGrom, I mean, even though they do have a fair amount of lefties in that lineup, but given the fact that DeGrom, I mean, holding lefties to a 253 WOBA this year, I don't see a lot of potential, especially at the Pagan and Span prices. I mean, Belt, you can make a case for, same thing with Crawford, but even a Posey if you wanted to look. I think maybe if I'm looking, it's probably just the 3, 4, 5 guys for maybe a one-off value. But outside of that, I'm not on this game at all for offense.
Yeah, I agree. Belt as a one-off, sure. Maybe even a Crawford, but even Crawford's price is a little expensive against DeGrom. So I'm all set with this lineup as well.
Yeah, it's an easy one with those two arms going. So that's going to wrap things up with the DK Daily Trot. Be sure to check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all great tools and content.